Hello. Well, I've been debating for a little while how I'm going to talk about this. I've wanted to talk about it for a bit, um, but I've not been quite sure how to, and how do I go about, I guess, talking about the topic as a whole, not trying to be biased and not trying to necessarily influence your opinions on things. And it's really hard. It's really hard, but I think it's important for me to talk about it for myself. So, quick disclaimer, everything that I say is from the information that I found out. It may not be all the information. There may be plenty more out there that could maybe better inform you or inform me. So if you want to chuck more links on there, then that's great. Um, and yeah, it's all my point of view and how I'm processing the information that I'm finding. Okay, so disclaimer done. So we've got the UK general election on the 4th of July. Hopefully everyone has already registered to vote. I will be honest in that I've always really voted Labour, been quite anti-Tories for a number of reasons, even before I came out as trans and I became like a member of the LGBTQ community. But I've always felt like Labour were the party for me. Everyone's different, and that's fine. Um, this time around, I honestly don't know what to do. So I've spent the past few hours like looking into some of the things and the policies and the manifestos and the things that have been said on interviews and stuff from a handful of the parties, and I haven't got all the information. So again, go and do your own research, make your own opinion on this. But I wanted to go through what I have found and take from it what you will. Even doing all this research, I'm still not sure what I'm going to do. So I'll start with Labour because, well, that was the first party's manifesto stuff that I started coming across. So, with regards to trans people, this is the basis of my points and my opinions because that's what's important to me. So, the gender recognition certificate, they want to suggest that you'll no longer have to provide evidence of 2 years living in that gender, but they'll switch it out for what they call a 2 year reflection period after applying for the certificate. Now, a lot of trans people I know take a while to get to the point where they're actually ready to apply for a gender recognition certificate anyway. And you can't apply for that until you've had a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, which is fine. But then to add 2 years, in effect, you're lengthening the process because the wait list to get your gender dysphoria diagnosis can take a long time anyway. So you could be living in your gender for maybe a year or so before you even get that appointment to get your diagnosis. And then obviously you've got to wait for all the gatekeeping and the reports and blah, 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 blah. And then you've got to add 2 years to it. So for me, that policy seems a bit sketchy. I don't like that one. Um, they're on about then from the gender recognition certificate panel. There's a panel of doctors, lawyers, and specialists who assess the applications. Um, they want to abolish that and just have one like specialist doctor doing the assessment, which might speed up the process. I'm not sure if there's going to be any bias in that then, though. I don't know. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I'm not too sure. They, like a few other parties, want to remove the spousal veto. So this is where, if you were married prior to coming out and getting your gender dysphoria diagnosis, and you want to apply for your gender recognition certificate, you had to get permission from your spouse to do that, or you'd have to annul or get divorced, um, and then potentially remarry. It was such a minefield. They're on about removing that so that you don't need permission to be yourself, honestly. Fine, that's a good thing. One grey area that I don't have enough information about is how they're committed to protecting single-sex spaces, especially for those of women and girls, biological women, biological girls. It's a very grey area, and these things are always said without saying specifically that trans women will be included or whether they'll be protected in some way, shape, or form as well. So, yeah, I'm not too sure on that one. I'm not too sure what's going to happen there. One positive is they are committed to actually fulfilling the ban on conversion therapy for all LGBTQ people, including trans people, which makes sense. It's such an archaic thing, and yeah, let's just stop trying to change who people are. If they are who they are, then that's it. You don't need to muck about with it. Upholding the Equalities Act. So obviously they set up the Equalities Act back in 2010. But what they're not saying is whether there's going to be any additional protection in there for trans people. So again, take from that what you will. Our Equalities Act has some protections for trans people right now, but there are potentially loopholes that people could dig into to exclude trans people. So I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. All forms of hate crime. Okay, so all forms of hate crime to be elevated to an aggravated offence, which basically means that the punishments for any hate crime could be higher. Depending on the circumstances, it could lead to life in prison. This is a good thing, I believe. If someone was to abuse me in a hate kind of way, I want them to know that they're not going to be able to do that again because they're going to get properly punished. Not just, oh, you can't see that because people don't like it or whatever that happens right now. They are also committed to following through some of the recommendations from the CAS review. Which ones? I don't know. I don't know whether it will make it harder or better for trans people, harder or better for trans youth. Again, we're going to have to see how it plays out. Now, the Tories, on the other hand, are quite against trans people, and they've made it very obvious with Rishi Sunak clearly stating a man is a man, a woman is a woman. It's common sense. I mean, no, it's not as simple as that. You have, even in the biological sex terms, with regards to how manly or womanly someone is, can vary so dramatically. Man, woman descriptors and the way they define whether you're manly or womanly or not are all societal constructions. So yeah, there's a lot more science and research that has been done into transgender people that prove that some of these comments and some of these statements are not based in fact. Biological elements with regards to the reproductive organs, fair. These things are separate. You have intersex people as well. So where are they included in this though? Minefield. Anyway, they want to change the definition of sex in the Equalities Act and in general terms to mean biological sex. And they would not allow for non-binary people. Now, this is so exclusive for so many different elements of our society. And yes, trans people are a minority, but to exclude a minority just because of, oh, I'm gotta be calm, gotta be concise. I'm gonna try and keep it short. They want to amend the NHS constitution to prevent trans women from certain parts of hospitals and wards and things. Basically, making it biological sex based categorization within hospitals. I don't think that's always going to work because, quite frankly, there's going to be certain parts of the NHS which trans women and trans men will need to access, which they wouldn't have needed to access prior to maybe having some levels of hormonal treatment or surgeries. I'm susceptible to a number of different things that I would not have been susceptible to, or maybe not even quite as much, um, before I came out. So I don't like that. They're committed again to implementing recommendations of the cash review. How much? Probably a lot more than the Labour government. Yeah, that cash review has been up for all sorts of debates, though, hasn't it? They want to ban all schools talking about and teaching about gender identity. I don't know. And I actually heard something about this from that Keir Starmer had recently said from the Labour Party, and it was about not teaching transgender ideology in schools. Again, do your research. Don't quote me on this. I don't like that it's being described as transgender ideology. In the same way that back in the 80s and 90s, there was the gay agenda. There is currently the transgender agenda, apparently. And thankfully, most of the world has moved on from describing it that way from the 80s and 90s. But now it's the trans people's fight and the trans people's fault and whatever. I don't see being transgender and talking about transgender issues and gender issues as ideology. And if it is, then no offense to any religious people out there. I have very religious friends. I support and respect all religions. I have nothing against it. However, that is also ideology. Yet that is openly taught in schools, even if it's as simple as celebrating Easter and Christmas. It's ideology. It's old ideology, don't get me wrong, like thousands of years, but it's not factual science. It's like it's ideology. So if you're going to not teach gender issues because of describing it as ideology, there's a lot of other areas of the national curriculum that you need to cover as well. I'm just putting that out there. And slate me. Say what you want. I don't care. If I don't like your comment, I'll delete it. This is my channel. Now, Reform Party are extreme Tories, basically. They want to be they're like white supremacists, UK supremacists. Okay. This is my opinion. My opinion, not fact, just my opinion. Take from it what you will. They say that all content out there about transgender people, by other media outlets that either promote transgender issues or fairly discuss them, is indoctrination, which is causing irreversible harm to children. And they obviously don't want that in schools. They want to clamp down on any content on social media as well. So that would mean that all of my stuff would probably be either blocked, deleted, or restricted. So let's hope they don't get any control. They describe, again, transgender issue as woke ideology. They want to ban the transgender ideology in primary and secondary schools, which is so harmful. I've spoken in secondary schools and I have helped children to understand, whether they're trans or not, I've helped them to understand what it means to be trans and what it means to be just another normal person in this world trying to survive and trying to live your truth. Like, Don't ban it. Don't ban transgender education within schools because it's just education. It's just teaching you the differences amongst humanity. That's it. They want to scrap diversity, equality, and inclusion roles. Now, I don't believe that they've actively been in place for too long, maybe 5 or so years. I was part of a team in my previous employer who were putting together the diversity and inclusion team and policies when a lot of these things were put into practice. And I think they're so incredibly important to show that your workforce is diverse and inclusive. It just means that you've got a much safer environment for different people, be it gender, sexuality, race, religion, disability. So many areas you can cover. I think they're important roles. I don't think they should be scrapped. And again, they want to mandate single-sex spaces. I did have a page for Plaid Cymru, but I didn't write anything on it. From what I've seen, I can't see anything like concrete, but they do seem very pro-trans rights and LGBTQ inclusion. They want, from what I understand, Wales to be the most inclusive country and all of these different things. I think Vaughan Gething from Labour Party here in Wales as well has said similar things. So again, take from that what you will. The Greens seem to be quite inclusive with their policies. They want to include LGBTQ plus people and transgender people's topics within the curriculum. Perfect. I'm up for that. They support self ID. Fair. That's fine. I'm like this with my opinion on self ID. I'm not too sure. I understand the threats that some people feel about it, but I think the process that trans people have to go through to be identified as themselves is a bit outdated right now. So maybe there needs to be some middle ground. I don't know. They want to formally recognize non-binary and intersex people with an X marker on passports. I think that's brilliant because I've managed to change my passport to have an F, which is great. But an X marker for non-binary and intersex people, perfect. I like that. I like that. And again, they want to scrap the spousal veto. There's probably other things as well that they're looking at and they've mentioned, but I haven't done too much digging. Same with the Lib Dems. They want to include trans and non-binary people in this whole self-ID topic and sort all that out. Obviously, the main race, as always, is typically going to be the Tories and Labour. I think it's safe to say that most people, at least most people that I know, feel that the Tories have had enough time and they need to get out. However you choose to vote, please vote. Because I think, especially if you are part of the LGBTQ community or if you are an ally, especially an ally for trans people, I think the things that the Tories are on about putting into place will seriously make it hard to exist in this country, in this nation, as a trans person. And whether we vote with our hearts, with the party that has the best policies that align with us, or whether we have to vote tactically and maybe just vote for Labour to give them a bigger control, or whether they'll just win anyway. Like, I honestly don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not trying to influence what you're going to do. These are all my opinions. Do your research, see what policies align with how you feel, and just vote. Um, and yeah, let's hope that for all of us, including us trans people, that the UK becomes a better place real soon. I'll see you soon. Love you. Bye.